Hello!
Hey!
Hi! Oh, I'm so happy we're talking! I was going through all of your websites, and I'm like, you are just amazing.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, like, your climbing and everything else, I was just like, I'm so impressed. I'm so excited to get to chat with you today.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm very much on the web because, I'm being stuck at home a lot.
Oh, no, I don't know what that's
routine
like
out
at
there.
all. Yes, I understand. Web is, like, one of the only ways to, like, outreach everything. Are we having sound issues?
I can hear you.
Oh, good. Okay, excellent. Just wanted to make sure that we were all good. Is that your art in the background?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh.
Do you want to...
Oh, Jasmine, it's gorgeous. It's so beautiful. Do you have, as I saw your climbing site, I saw your site for, is it mostly Ehlers Danlos? I got to go through a lot of it, and I saw Ehlers Danlos, but I wasn't sure if there's other things on your site, too.
I'm currently trying to expand it to, reach a broader audience. I also kind of got a little bit, stuck into a corner just talking about the EDS stuff, so I'm trying to broaden it out right now.
I absolutely hear and understand that. We did the same thing with this podcast. We were starting with just invisible illnesses and decided to branch out all the way.
Yeah.
That's really nice to meet you, Jasmine. There is so much to go over. You have a wellness site called Embrace the Brace.
Yeah.
And I was going through some of the articles. They are incredibly knowledgeable and way better at grammar than I am. So I'm very impressed at how wonderful that looks. Did you have a background in medicine?
I was in medical school for just a little bit, so...
That's amazing to me, because you already had some symptoms of Ehlers-Danlos before you went to medical school, is that right?
Yeah, I did. And actually, not all, a lot of the reason why I went is just because I love learning and I love biology and systems and neuroscience and stuff, but part of the reason I went is because I thought, I needed to figure out what was wrong with me. And at the time, I thought that it was psychological because I was in so much pain. And I was just like, you know what, someday I'm going to figure out how to not be in pain. This is ridiculous. Somebody cannot be in this much pain.
I feel like hugging you right now because I wasn't clever enough to get into medical school, but I would watch the House episodes and ER, I'm old, ER and then Grey's Anatomy just to see if anyone's symptoms would actually match up to what I was experiencing, because I thought I might be crazy or I just was so desperate for something. A thread to follow. I guess I got my dramatic medical school that way, but I totally understand if that need to grasp onto answers.
Yeah, I mean it's weird because I'd almost really given up by the time I was going to medical school. It's not like I even really thought there would be an answer. I just thought in the back of my mind, well, maybe this could also be a good reason to learn this stuff. I really didn't think that it would all come crashing down so quickly. This is not what I expected. I thought maybe when I was 50 years old or something, someday eventually.
Oh man, I hear that one so much, yes. It's so weird even when you do have a diagnosis, when it's something like Ehlers-Danlos, there's no good protocol. You have no idea if you're talking about it'll be in another year or two or 10 or 15 or 30 years. I thought an early retirement would be 50 and that's what I'd be looking at. But no, 38 was pretty much it.
Yeah, it's so unknown.
So I know you didn't want to go too far in, but I was just really curious because you're one of the few people who, like me, had experiences even as a kid with symptoms. And if you, at any point, are you know what, I don't want to talk about that, just raise your hand. I will run away from that topic so fast. But I was just kind of curious because, the idea of going to medical school is such a intensely physical thing. Med school is not easy on the brain or body at all. And if you were looking at becoming a doctor, right, you probably knew rotations and all the rest of that. Were you I thought ballet and all the other things, were you in the space of no, I'm going to do this anyway, or were you doing this to get answers and you weren't planning on going all the way with it? Or is that just too many questions for you all at once? I'm so sorry.
Oh, no. Okay, well, so, I always thought that I was going to go more into research. Okay. So I thought that I would just somehow get through all that clinical stuff and then be able to do the research. But even, in my first semester, we had to do, like, not even rotations, just, like, being on our feet really early in the morning, which is when I was always so dizzy, and I almost fainted so many times. I think I did nearly pass out once.
You were in a good group for it, at least.
So I guess it was at that point, I guess it wasn't hitting me correctly. I think I was still in that mode where I was just like, no, this just happens to everybody, like, it's no problem.
Oh my god, how many, like, chronic illness people just heard, it happens to everyone, it's no problem, and just raise their hand going, yeah, I'm always, like, it's such a weird thing when you're a kid with it, because you start considering, like, maybe this is just everyone's normal, and I'm just particularly bad at handling this kind of pain.
That's exactly what I thought. For sure.
Yeah, I hear you there. so extremely, I hear you there.
So maybe part of it was, like, poor planning, I don't know. Extreme stubbornness, I'm not sure.
I mean, the swoon and fall is not nearly as romantic as, like, the Victorian novels would have us believe. So, you're in, like, this really cool Venn diagram middle of someone who can actually, like, speak doctor.
So, maybe, I guess I can. I don't even realize. I think this gets me a lot of shit at the doctor, actually.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
I'm not trying to speak doctor, I'm just speaking whatever. And they're like, did you go home and Google all this? Like, and I'm like, no, I'm coming here. I'm like asking you a question. I don't know. I just know a lot of science. Like, because I don't actually really know that much about medicine or pharmaceuticals or anything, but I'm an extreme science nerd. So I'll know, like, often more than they do about, like, the basic, like, the chemistry and the anatomy, and I think that kind of freaks them out. And they kept telling me I had, like, that medical school syndrome or something. You heard about it?
Okay, no, it's, I studied, psychology. I was going to become a therapist, and, yeah, it's that first year, they are just like, oh, you went to first year psych. You went psych 101. You're diagnosing everyone.
Yeah.
So, what I meant, like, one of the things I meant with, like, speaking doctor is, like, they give me these things to read, and I ended up becoming a literature major. I can't stay focused reading the medical journal stuff to even learn more. Are you able to, like, process through all of these new ideas? Like, they're talking, like, there's so much on the horizon right now with, like, ketamine and laser therapy and all the rest of it. Like, are you able to read through those articles and, like, really go beyond their hype and their, what's the word I'm looking for? Beyond their marketing, I guess, is the best way to phrase it.
Yeah, and actually, I think that's actually why I am doing this Embrace the Brace site, is because there's so much information out on the internet. There's so much bad information, whether it's in the medical community or just, there's way more bad information just on, like, alternative health and all that kind of stuff. Just, like, a bunch of nonsense and ads, and I'm trying to sort through it the best that I can for other people.
So do you actually try some of the things, or do you just give everyone, like, the actual science breakdown on whether it would really work or not?
I mean, it depends what it is. I'm trying, like, one of the most recent good examples I did of this was, like, essential oils.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one that I really looked into the science of, like, how smell works and how that can affect the neuroscience in your brain, and it's also something that I tried in the past.
Wow, okay, well, if you want to send me a link over, I could link that into the show notes. So yeah, everyone who's listening, head over to show notes also, because I have linked up this site. I have also linked up your climbing site, because I thought that was pretty badass and cool. So yeah, definitely head over to show notes. I have everything highlighted and linked up for everyone, so you can go and check out Embrace the Brace. I am so glad you're doing that, and I started to do that as well on our blog on just things I've tried, because I actually spent the money a lot of the times to try a lot of these things that were like, this will absolutely change your life, and I'm like, okay, fine, I'm a sucker at 3 o'clock in the morning in Amazon, and it's really a problem. I need to disable that site after, like, midnight. But I try them and I test them out, and it's one of the things that we decided, all of us co-hosts together, that we would not take money for this website or for the podcast, because I wanted my reviews on anything to be, like, definitely just set. And the amount of money you can pour out on these alternative therapies are extreme.
Yeah, and that's one of my goals too for Embrace the Brace, is to stay neutral, and that's why I kind of signed up to do this podcast, is because I'm hoping that I could get more people involved with it, because if it's just me, then it's really kind of biased. Like, I'd love to have other people try to approach all these topics, like, from a super rational viewpoint and see what they can come up with, because somebody might come up with a different conclusion than I do.
And that's such a good point. Like, you really do want more hands on it because, I mean, first of all, there's the biology. Some things just might not work well for you that might work for someone else, but there's also different disorders and different tolerances for things. Like, the new big, like, buzzword right now is the ketamine, and I'm, like, really looking into it right now, and I'm trying to wade through the science because the side effects scare me. So, like, it's hard for someone like me to wade through those side effect sites and everything.
Maybe I'll add that to my list.
Please do.
It's been in the back of my mind.
I've interviewed someone else who had done ketamine for her fibromyalgia, and she's like, I don't have to use the opioids because this works great for me. Just for me. No, please don't sue us. It's just saying that worked for this one person. And I did the research on I'm like, oh, that would be wonderful. And I did the research on what some of the side effects were, and those really scared me. So I'm like, I'm still trying to figure out the science behind that kind of painkiller. So for you, you started doing like climbing for setting up your joints, which I know, please, by the way, don't sue us. Do not start climbing unless your doctor or physical therapist has had some words in. But I've always had that theory, like, because I did ballet for years and years and years. And I think it actually gave me an extra 10 or 15 years because of all of the, like, things like yoga or ballet or climbing. You're using so many small muscles that you would never target in a gym. And I'm wondering, like, did that actually really end up, like, settling you, helping you, like, keeping all of your joints together? Because you're still pretty, I mean, like, I'm just making a wild guess. I think you're pretty young. So I'm wondering if that's, like, part of, like, I'm actually fishing for advice, basically, is what's going on here. I'm, like, at the end of my treatments of, like, the doctor's going, oh, we're just scared and we don't want to touch you anymore. So I'm, like, flailing wildly for any ideas of what to do next. So you are being a guinea pig right now, and I'm trying to get ideas.
I mean, so basically, I was super active when I was, like, in middle school, and then I just had to quit everything one by one by the time I was 14 or 15, so I was really inactive from age of, like, 15 to 20.
Wow.
And I started, the only thing I was really doing was walking, pretty much. And around 20 is when my Ehlers Danlos got really bad, and I had, like, spinal complications, which really kind of got me on bed rest for a while and really debilitated. And I don't know if you've experienced this with EDS, but when you get knocked down, like, it is so hard to get back up from it. Oh. And so the climbing for me, it's like stabilized my muscle tone and prevented my joints from getting worse, but I can't say that it's helping me get better. It's still, like, this constant battle to not go downhill.
That battle is one of the most frustrating things about Ehlers-Danlos. I like absolutes. I hate not having absolutes in my life. And, like, well, if you don't do this, you're going to lose muscle. But if you do this, you could end up backsliding and ending up in bed for, like, 3 weeks. And, like, there's no good answer. It's like,
yeah,
it's so frustrating.
It still messes me up sometimes, that's the thing, and that's why I don't advocate climbing for other people. I mean, the main reason I do it is because it overall helps me more than it hurts me, but it still hurts me sometimes. And it still caused me some issues, like, with my toes especially, my toes and my fingers, like, I have to be really careful. It's not, like, even though I do competitive climbing, the way that I train with EDS is actually by not training. Like,
okay.
I don't try things that I only do things that I know I can do.
That is really interesting. I just started to go against doctor's advice-ish and started doing, like, planks in the more modified planks just because I got stuck in bed for 3 weeks and, like, everything went. It's like, if one thing goes with Ehlers-Danlos, you can guess the entire half of your body is going to follow real fast. At least for my Ehlers-Danlos. I know there's a lot of different kinds, but oh my god. Like, my husband just watches it, like, dislocated shoulder. It's like he's, like, counting it down till, like, I start screeching about my elbow, and then it's my wrist, and then it's, like, the wrist, and he's like, all right, we're done. So for you, I mean, like, I'm trying to wrap my brain around everything you do, and please forgive me if I'm a little disjointed today. I am on every medication I have on my side of my bed so I can sit up and talk to you today. It's been a brutal, like, 3 days, so if I'm a little meandery, forgive me and just do, like, Kyros and pull me back on track. I would appreciate that. But I was so blown away because I was reading through your questions, and you did such a great job answering your questions. So again, go over to show notes. These are really amazing. And you do so much. And I guess I was just kind of in awe on how your brain works, like from like science to like getting into the creation zone. Can you tell me a little bit about your artwork and how that works for you for like pain relief and refocusing?
Yeah, so my art, I always say my art saves me because it's this like ongoing passion that like keeps me going and it keeps me motivated. The reason I climb actually is so that I'm strong enough to do art. It's not that I care anything about being athletic. Like I actually really don't care. I'm really if I didn't have EDS, I'd probably never be going to the gym because I'm like the type of person that normally sits in the library. That's just how I naturally am, but because of the art, it motivates me to do what I need to do to take care of my body, to stay strong so that I can keep creating more things. And even when I've been on bed rest, like it gives my mind this outlet, I guess, so that I don't get stuck in like negative thoughts about, oh my god, I'm stuck here. This is horrible. I'm in pain. It's just like this escape.
I don't think that people understand, not that this is a cure or not that it's like, go ahead and get rid of all of your mood stabilizers, but finding a creative outlet, I don't have a better pain management tool or depression management tool. I get horrible depression, but if I'm creating, for some reason, like all of the thoughts in my head, they're like the deep, dark, like void, jump on into void thoughts go away for that time that I'm creating.
No, exactly.
Yeah, it's like you get into that flow of like when you were a kid, like a little kid, and like you're playing make-believe and like nothing else exists, and all of a sudden someone's like, it's bedtime. You're like, no, the sun just came up. I just started doing this, and like hours pass and you don't recognize that time passed.
Yeah, exactly. That's why actually when people ask me like, well, how do I stay so positive or how do I like keep doing all this stuff that I'm doing, and I'm like, well, I don't really try to keep doing it. I'm just trying to stay distracted. And I'm just doing whatever happens to happen. So I try to explain that to people. It's kind of difficult for people that haven't had some type of creative outlook or outlet.
Seriously, like I don't know what anyone does who doesn't have like, and I think we're all creative. I know people say sometimes like I'm not a creative person, and I think it's just because it got beaten out of them or like verbally, emotionally, whatever, like when they're kids. Like I feel like every kid's born a scientist and an artist and a storyteller, and like that just gets thrown out during like, you know, at least US education, like that's so like thrown to the side. And I think everyone, if they could like, either if you're a reader, like I feel like even reading is a creative activity because you're running the movie through your head while you're reading a book. Like there's so many different ways to find that zone, and it's such an important thing to find. I think distraction is everything, really. It's like one of the best managements.
Yeah, and especially if it's one that it's like it's a form of distraction where it's still moving your life forward and it's still connected to the world. It's not like being distracted and running away. It's like being distracted and being present.
Oh, I like that so much. That is an incredible distinction between like I drink to escape, I do drugs to escape, I like anything that people use in that like to escape. But you're right; those are escapes where you are really removing yourself from existing, where creation is that like complete presence of mind. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
that was a really gorgeous way to phrase that. So for like I'm so understanding you with like I climb and I do physicality so that I can paint and draw. When I was a photographer, I used to do the gym just so I could hold my camera. Like that was I worked so hard just to extend whatever years I had left in front of that camera. And it's the same thing when I was photographing. I wouldn't feel any pain until the shoot was over. Then it was awful. But like the whole time I was photographing, those moments were just like apart from everything else.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly the same for me, really, except for holding a paintbrush.
And God, like, please, everyone, if like we have a YouTube channel, if you're curious what we look like or what we're talking about, because you'll hear me ooh and ah over people's pets, and you're like, what the heck is this woman freaking out about? I will always ooh and ah over dogs. But like, go over to our YouTube channel, watch this video, because you can see all of Jasmine's beautiful artwork behind her. I hope you sell this. If you do, send me a link, and I'll put it on the. Like,
oh yeah, I have a
Etsy
website.
Shop. Okay.
I definitely didn't know I was being recorded, though.
Oh, I'm so sorry. God, I feel really bad. I find people, I used to do intros.
Okay.
So if anyone's like listening, they're like, why has the podcast changed so much? She used to do these really professional intros. I did used to do professional intros, and then I realized that everyone freezes up the second they realize that I pressed record. So now I just sort of like, we start talking, and then like you realize like halfway through that we've been talking, and it tends to be a more easy flow. I guess. I hope you aren't offended or upset.
No, I didn't realize I was being videoed.
Oh, my deep apologies. You know what? If you don't want the video up, you can just tell me and I will not put the video up. But you look adorable. I thought you were like, oh no, I totally styled myself for this.
That's better. Now I didn't have to care. I didn't have to worry about that. Great.
Oh, well, I think you look adorable, but if you choose to not put it up on the video, then ignore everything I just said. Go to the show notes and see Artwork will post it over there. But if you do want video up, it's really great. I love your work. And you can see so much of like, I don't know how you feel like about creating, but do you really, do you put like what you're feeling at that moment in, or do you escape what you're feeling?
I have to say, I don't tend to put a lot of feeling into my creation. It's more of like a meditative zone, and I tend to put more like logical, like my science actually really comes into my art, and one of my goals is that it kind of transcends like my personal perspective and represents like a greater truth than just me or even humanity. So I like to explore these patterns that exist at all scales of the universe and kind of try to get the human ego out of it.
Oh my god, I like you so much. That is really neat. And I can see the cellular structure behind you. Like, it seems like your forms are...
Cells.
Yeah, like, okay, so after I got through, like, the U.S. educational system, I realized I am a total science nerd and geek, and I love science, but I need it to be explained to me in a way that is more Neil deGrasse Tyson than, like, super dry stuff. And then I got obsessed and got the whole, like, idea of, like, what the geometry of the universe and the geometry of cells and the geometry of plants. It's really fascinating. I can see a lot of that in your influence.
Yeah. So that's my main theme.
That is so cool. I'm actually desperately jealous because I am such a attention span of like a gnat with a cocaine issue. Like I have no attention span to hold on to any one theme. So my artwork is like everywhere from like I find an artist that I love and I just obsess on their style for a minute. Like I just feel like a mayfly. So the idea of having a theme I'm really obsessed with, and I wish I could stay focused long enough to have a theme. So that's very, very amazing.
You'll find it, I think.
Sure.
You just have to keep redefining it. That's what I've done. Is I think because sometimes when I talk, it sounds like I'm just exploring everything, but it's just taken me a couple of years to figure out how to include all of my interests into a couple sentences. It's an art in of itself.
You have one of the most amazing minds, like your interest range, like everything. It's so fascinating to me that usually when you see someone who's got that ordered of a mind, it doesn't flow over into creativity. And I love seeing, I've followed quite a few artists who are very similar in that they can have a theme of something like nature or something really beyond the human ego. And I love their work. There's been a few jewelers who have been working with like mitochondrial structures in their silver work, and it's fascinating.
I love that.
Yeah. Gosh, I'm just going through like all the stuff that you had written because I'm so amazed at gosh, I know you didn't want to talk too much about being a kid who was sick, but it's something that I just understand so intensely. Do you want to talk at all about like what it was like to, I mean, when you're talking about like 12 through being a young teenager, those are like dating times, those are times of like really intense friend structures. Did you have anything in there that you wanted to talk about, or do you want me just to run away as fast as I can from that topic?
I'm not sure I have a lot to say. It's just I didn't really know that I was sick. I mean, I did know. I was telling everybody, but nobody was listening to me. And so then I just internalized that as, okay, there must be something wrong with me, like, psychologically. And I just, like, learned to hide it. And it's almost like I became afraid to be myself. So I think when I was diagnosed, then, like, all of that was just released. And I was like, oh, wait, I'm not crazy. I'm not a baby. I'm not just like complaining about nothing. And like it kind of gave me this whole new perspective on life. And all of a sudden, like this mental pain that I'd had was just released.
I can't imagine. Like, I can't imagine. I feel like such like a kinship with this because it's such a. I think most people are sitting here in their cars just going, "Oh my god, yeah, I know how that feels." Like when you have something like POTS, if people are listening to this who don't have POTS or Ehlers-Danlos, it can mimic a panic attack. The symptoms, and I was convinced I couldn't go away to college, and I couldn't that it's just really bad at life because I would have like the raised heart rate and the inability to breathe, and I would just like sit in my campus just like shivering, and I just thought I was having panic attacks. I didn't know I could have like gotten some Noon, some Goo, some meds, and then I could have even been able to have gone off exploring some more. It's a really limiting thing when you're assuming that it's one thing and it could be something very different that might be more manageable or easier to manage.
Yeah.
Did any of this like inform your choices on like where you went to school or travel opportunities or like friend opportunities?
From when I was like 12 to 18, I just ignored it. It was getting worse, and I just got better and better and better and being in denial. So
yeah, it's not just a river in
Egypt.
Happening.
It wasn't even happening.
Denial is a very good friend sometimes. It's not always the worst thing.
It works for a little while, but then it epically fails.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned.
It can get you through a little bit of time while you're like processing and handling. Like that can be something for a minute.
Yeah, but no, it wasn't. I wasn't making any decisions based on that, and I think that's how I ended up kind of going down a road that didn't really make any sense for me because I was denying my true self in many different ways.
How are you able to like access true self? Like you're so young and you're so wise with everything. I'm just very curious. Like how are you able to figure? I feel like I'm still like fighting through the be entertaining, be nice, always be pleasant, so people want to hang out with you, and like trying to figure out who I actually am in between all of that has been like a decades long struggle. How are you able to access that and just be authentic?
I think
you didn't realize you were going to have therapy today, did you?
No.
Sorry.
But, I mean, there's something about being really sick and really stuck that I think was a turning point for me, and it was when I realized, you know what, I'm stuck here right now, I can't do anything, I don't know if I'm going to ever get better, so I might as well work on my self-development. I have nothing else to do.
I love that a lot. Because you had talked about that in your questionnaire. It reminded me a lot of right after Stephen Hawking died. And there were all of those visuals of him standing in front of his wheelchair and finally free. And the disabled community at large was like, did anyone read anything he wrote? He wrote over and over again that he was grateful for his disorder, and he was incredibly grateful for his chair because his disorder allowed him the freedom of mind. And he said many times that he would not have had that if he had had the worries of mortgages and being healthy and having to make all these decisions and things. He wouldn't have had that level of focus to really deep dive into his theories. So when you're saying that, it's like, there's a very small silver lining here, but...
Yeah, I think the other thing that I should mention is a couple years ago, I lost my brother to suicide. And that really... I think also was transformative for me because it even more than being sick made me realize how fragile life is.
That's amazing and hard, and I can't imagine what you and your family are going through. Mental health is such a big issue.
I bring it up because it's a big motivation in why I started this blog, because he had a lot of chronic pain, and I know how wearing it can be for people. And that's why I just really wanted to, start a community or something where people can get together and, spread messages of, functional hope that could be brought into your life today.
I love your distinction.
Instead of all this waiting.
That's beautiful. I love your distinction of functional hope, because hope can get very dangerous when you have chronic illness and chronic pain. And a functional hope, I think that's a very different thing than a... yes, What a beautiful thing you've done. From what I can't even imagine what you and your family have gone through. What a beautiful thing for you to create. That's amazing. But I'm going to, in the top lines, put a little bit of a I hate to say trigger warning. I feel like that word is used way too much, but we will be putting suicide and mental health hotlines up. If you think you are alone when you are in chronic pain and you are having deep, dark, terrifying thoughts about harming yourself, you are not alone by a long shot. There are, I mean, I will publicly admit I have absolutely had those nights. I've had those days. I've had those months. I've had those years. They're awful, and no one is alone in this one. So thank you so much for taking something so, and thank you for sharing that here on the podcast. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things where, like, if we don't all talk about things like this, everyone just feels lonely in their experience and they're not alone in it.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I wanted to bring it up. And then I think it helps people understand, what my goal is with the blog and where I'm trying to go with it.
It's an incredible blog. I mean, I didn't get a lot of time this morning to go through it, but I did go through a lot, and you are so incredibly knowledgeable. You are such a good writer, and it's an easy read. So don't think that this is going to be like super dense science stuff that you might feel intimidated to read. This is really some great information presented very well. Thank you. So how are you able to, and again, this is me fishing for ideas, how are you able to keep, is you are the one who's coming up with a lot of this content. I was looking through, I didn't see anything that was like, how are you able to have the energy levels to come up with content like this? And it seems pretty regular as well. Again, I need help. How do you do this?
I don't know. I have some type of problem almost where, like, I have so many ideas and I can't get them done at a rate that's even, I don't have any shortage of content ideas. I need more writers or something or more time.
You know what? We should team up together. Maybe we can cross-pollinate blogs.
Yeah.
No, that could help.
That's what I would love to do with this.
Oh, we'll chat after we stop, because that would be. I mean, I think that any of us who are doing chronic illness, like things like this, we all need to help each other, because God knows no one has the energy.
Yeah, well, I do know, like, the other thing I do try to do is I try to talk about topics that are unique. I try not to be repetitive or do things that are already out there.
Do you have any favorite topics that you've covered lately?
Well, lately I've switched to a lot of, like, mindfulness and, like, mental wellness, I guess I could say. I don't really know what the topic is, but it's strayed from, like, just Ehlers Danlos and into that, and then how that relates to, like, dealing with pain.
Do you have any tricks that have, like, just personally worked for you with mindfulness and pain?
I can't say there's anything that comes to mind, but probably the biggest one that I need to remind myself the most often is that sometimes it's okay to just be in pain, and that's what you're doing. Because I'm too hard on myself, and I think a lot of other people are too. It's like, I start to go into this loop of getting angry at myself for being in pain, and then thinking, well, why am I not managing my pain better? And then that just, it's like, you're going to be in pain, just be in physical pain, and just do that for a little while. Don't put yourself in mental pain, too.
I feel like I need to pay you for therapy after this visit. Oh my God, yes. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been like, well, I should be better at handling this. Or, like, I need to go do more things to manage this pain level. Like, even if I've gotten to the top of what I'm allowed to take or do, and it's still painful. And sometimes I just have, you're right, you just have, like, at least I just have to remember to be like, okay, so that's what's happening right now.
Yeah, the article I'm working on right now is going to be on the intersection of pain and willpower.
Oh, Jesus, yes. Wow. How do you see that working together? Because I can think of a lot of ways that goes.
The main thing I keep coming up upon is, like, I'm not sure exactly how to describe this, but there are, like, two different forms of willpower almost. And one of them is, like grit, I guess, where you just kind of, you push through whatever it is that you need to do and you get it done. And to me, when you're already suffering, you can't, that's like putting yourself through more suffering. And it's not really an effective form of willpower, I don't think, for when you're in pain. So I'm trying to explore this, like, other version of willpower that, like, stems from a different energy source. That is, like, an energizing form, which for me, I think, is creativity. And for other people, it may be other forms of their passion or something like that. But it's, like, not trying to put yourself in more suffering to get out of suffering.
I want to tattoo that. That is a really important thing to remember, not to put yourself through more suffering to get yourself out of suffering. I think you just defined, like, so much from eating disorders to chronic pain to mental health. I mean, I can't tell you how many friends I've had who have suffered through chronic depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, who have, like, put themselves through emotional hell because they thought that they put all the onus on them without, like, the willpower should have been enough to put them through their mental health or their physical health issues. And
yeah, exactly.
That's I feel like we just need to do clips of you right now of, like, all of your incredible, like, wise moments here. That's really that's a wonderful way to see that. That's a much healthier way to see that. I wish more doctors could take note of that.
Well, hopefully, maybe they will get word of some of this.
I would hope so. I hope, and to get political for a moment, I would hope that our political and healthcare system would get a hold of this. And I'm not talking partisan issues. I'm talking a bipartisan issue of sick people don't need to bootstrap. They need help. Like, we actually need to not be, like, dying. That would be great. If we could not live or die based on how much money we have, that would be fantastic right now.
Yeah, I know. I mentioned that in one of the questions that I think I said what I was most scared of is that for me to be doing what I'm doing today, I absolutely needed to travel around the country and have surgeries that are not covered by most people's health insurances. And that terrifies me.
Me too. I will ask you about the surgeries in a second, but right now one of the big news stories is another person died from not being able to get their insulin because insulin in the United States went up 1,200%, and it's now over $200 a vial. So we're right now when we are saying, because we're both here in the United States, right? You're here in the U.S. with me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, when we're saying we're literally dying here, we are literally dying. We are not kidding. We are not hyperbolizing. We are not being dramatic. Like, people are dying here because our drug companies, we are legally not allowed to negotiate. The government cannot legally negotiate with drug companies in the United States. So they are allowed to pull $1,000 increase on insulin. They're allowed to pull a $2,000 increase on the EpiPen. Like, we're not kidding when we're saying these things. And it's so depressing. I have POTS also, and its exact symptoms are a heart attack. It feels just like a heart attack. And we have to play the roulette of can't go to the hospital to find out. Like, yeah. So we're having the debate in my household of, can we stay here? Am I going to die because I didn't go to the hospital? To which I've had insurance companies say, that's okay, you can go ahead and die. That's fine with us. That's cheaper for us. So, I mean, if that's a mental health trigger thing, I can tell you it definitely triggered my mental health. It's been a very dark 4 days. It's like, these are the things that you will actually hear from your healthcare is like, sure, go ahead. That's fine. We just don't want to pay for you to go to the hospital.
It's so tough. And then especially with Ehlers Danlos, there's things that feel like an emergency. You don't know if they're an emergency. And, like, so often with me, it's like, I don't even care if this is an emergency. I don't want to see another doctor right now because you guys make me feel, like, so sad. And then I'm sick and in pain and sad. So I'll just be sick and in pain without being sad.
Can we discuss medical fatigue for a moment? Like, just the absolute fatigue of I cannot see another fucking doctor. Like, I can't.
Sure.
Like just the exhaustion of being in, like, I think that one of the other things is there's the idea that you have to be mentally clear in an ER room, especially with Ehlers Danlos, where you have to, if you're going to have emergency surgery, you need to explain real quick how the anesthesia is going to work on you. Like, you have to be so fast and clear there, but in pain, exhausted, and sitting up for 6 hours. Like, and then another doctor wants to come in and discuss something who's never heard of your disorder. I almost like, I see a stethoscope and a white coat, and I'm not kidding. My heart rate goes through the roof. I get super nervous and clammy and just exhausted. Like, I can't even come up with a sentence. I know it's hard for anyone who listens to this podcast to believe that there's a moment I stop talking, but that is definitely the moment where I get panic.
Yeah. Well, this is all the reason why some people ask me if somehow I could go back to medical school, would I? And all of this is the reason why I know that I can't, because the whole reason I wanted to even think about getting into that field was to be able to help people from a place of like kindness and compassion, and somehow it's just so far gone from the whole infrastructure. It's not like anybody's personal fault, but I think it has to do with the way that it's funded and everything. It's just like there's no healing in this business anymore. It's business.
It is absolutely a business. You're correct. And God, I wish that there were more doctors who came from a place of compassion and wanting to heal. That would be amazing. I think they're just all so exhausted. Like I have my physical therapist who I think walks on water and I adore. And I have my GP who I fought long and hard to find one that I love. But every other doctor fighting to keep them in that room to have a full discussion with me is exhausting. Like, it is, yeah. But when you're talking about, like, would you go back to medical school or not, that's are you on disability as well, or do you not want to discuss whether you are or aren't?
I'm supposed to be. There's some issues.
Dear God, yeah, I had my mom had to do it was a 20-hour week job for me to get onto disability. It was insanity. And our disability system here, there's incredible rules around it on what you can and can't do. But like, I almost finished my graduate degree. I was supposed to be an English professor. It's like, oh, well, why don't you go back? Well, there's a whole bunch of reasons. But like the idea of like what you're talking about with grit and not self-control. I'm so sorry. When I said I took everything on my dresser, I really meant it. I am on everything right now. The idea of being able to push through, and I feel like there's this like sort of rumor or this idea of I worked hard for my medical insurance, I worked hard for my house, I worked hard for all these things. It's like, oh God, if I could work hard, I would. I would love to go back. If I could go and like become a librarian or a teacher again. I know I could never do the photography again, but like the idea of like actually being a part of the world and doing like something that I loved, like teaching, God, that'd be amazing. It's but I feel like there's this sort of prevalent rumor that disabled people are just sitting around throwing bonbons in their mouths watching like endless YouTube. And there are those days, don't get me wrong, but I'd rather be doing something else, I promise.
You're running a podcast though. I mean, you're doing stuff, and I'm trying to work for myself. I'm trying multiple different ways.
What's your side hustle aside from the blog?
Oh, my side hustle?
Yeah.
Well, I sell my art is actually the biggest thing that I do, and I'm currently working on exploring a career in like life coaching or something along the lines of that. That would be specific for chronic illness.
You are so like just what you've said in the last like 40 minutes are so good. Mm-hmm. You need to like. Oh, that'd be amazing. You would be such a great life coach.
Well, thank you. I just, honestly, I can't figure out, like, what type of certification I need or how to get started, but people do, like, ask me questions all the time, so I'm like, well, maybe I should do this.
I will give you some advice right now. There's actually, at least the last time I checked, because I used to work with a whole bunch of life coaches and business networking, there was no official certification. There are, like, some, but they're not official, so you could totally do this.
Okay, everyone. Well, I'll let you know when I get started.
We'll have a new name for you. We'll have, like, everything all set up. I think you'd be incredible. You have an amazing level of empathy and understanding, and some way that at your, like, I just feel like you're so young for, like, the amount of, like, what you are able to see clearly. You have an amazing way to see things very, very clearly. I'm very jealous of that. That's a wonderful, wonderful skill.
Thank you. I don't know. I guess it's some hyper-rational. Sometimes people say that I am.
I wish I had a little bit more of that rational. I think everyone in my life wishes I had more rational. But you're right, with the podcast, that's like a 40-hour-week job, which if you've been listening for a while, you know I've been passing that off to other podcast hosts. We are getting a lot more co-hosts lately, and that is strictly, I'm way too sick to continue the way I was. It was just, it was too much to do, and it was either closing down the podcast, which so many of you are so nice and write me at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's no way I was going to do that. So I have I have handed off some responsibility lately. So we're almost to the end, and I hate to be at the end, but you gave some great advice in your life hack section, and I feel like very few people are as good at life hacks as people with chronic illness. And you had a great one, which I kind of distilled it down, and if I'm wrong in how I distilled it, please correct me, but it was basically the idea that you don't have to feel like you're your disorder's ambassador 24/7. And like, I just felt that one so intense. Sometimes I'm super chatty and I'm like, sure, I'll tell you all the reasons why I'm parked in this handicap spot. And other times I'm like, I will faint in your arms while I'm explaining this. So like, you had some great advice on that. Do you want to elaborate? And I will stop taking my hands. Oh.
So it's pretty much just that you don't need to explain yourself, because I know people are constantly asking me questions, and sometimes I feel really almost like obligated. Like, yeah, I need to spread awareness for this because it's rare and it might help other people. And then other times, this is even more important, I think, is when it's like close friends and family. Like, they always would try to understand like exactly what was going on because they thought that that's how they could relate to me and that that's how they could help me. But in the last year or two, I think we've all come to this consensus that no, you don't need to understand, because when I'm really in pain or not feeling well, I don't really want to talk about it because I'm trying to actively ignore it, actually. So if I just tell you, like, really vaguely, like, okay, today I can't walk. That's really all you need to know. You don't need to know why. You don't need to know anything else. You just need to know, like, what it is that might be helpful for me, and then just believe me from there.
Oh God, what beautiful advice for everyone who's like a loved one or a friend or a person in their life got diagnosed with a chronic illness. Like, just believe me, and just whatever I say I can and can't do, just go with that. And if that changes in 5 minutes, you don't need to acknowledge that either. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like, we don't need to go into detail about why yesterday I could do this and today I can't do this or whatever.
One of my best...
really, explaining is exhausting sometimes.
That takes spoons. Like, a lot of spoons to, like, sit there and explain, like, every... And I'm sure, like, there's probably a lot of people who are a different socioeconomic group, different skin color than me that definitely know that just from that part of life, of, like, explaining what life is like with anything that is different from the norm, or not norm, but different from, like, the status quo of what everyone decides is, like, what someone's life experience is. Like, that's just exhausting to have to, like, break everything down. I was, like, super lucky that one of my friends from high school came over the other day, and she very much just, like, lived that. I was dislocating everything in front of her and wincing, and she's like, okay, so when we first start talking again, you told me to just ignore you when you do that. I'm just going to check one time. Do I need to call a hospital, a doctor, or do you want me to still ignore? It was, like, the sweetest question. It was like, I'm going to give you all the control in this, and just, like, work from there. It was just a really neat thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So you brought up, like, we're almost at an hour, but I really wanted to go through this with you because it was one of my favorite things about being chronically ill. It's the weirdest thing to say, but you said it was an incredible buffer and filter for people in your life.
Yeah, and I definitely only appreciated that, like, on the after side.
Yeah?
Yeah, because when you're going through it, I was just thinking, what is wrong with all these people that are supposed to love me? Like, where are they going?
Oh God, the mass
They're
exodus.
leaving me. Everyone's leaving me. I'm no fun anymore.
Oh, yes. Oh my God.
Wait, I'm not required to be fun. I don't have to be fun to be who I am. That's not something I signed up to have to do.
That's the one I'm trying to learn right now, is I don't have to be fun or entertaining for people to like me. Like, there's more to that. That is, like, super true. Like, it's I felt like when I finally got my diagnosis and I had to stop working, it was a mass exodus of people. Like, I'd say at least 50% of the people in my life were gone. And it was just, what I was doing with them was my work stuff. Even though we were also friends, there was just, I guess, not enough to hold on to after that. But it was it was such a rejection. It felt like such an intense rejection.
No, I think people are scared, and I think I had a lot of dietary restrictions, and I couldn't drink because of my digestive problems for a while, and it just really created this separation of, I guess, less mature friendships that weren't like developed enough to be able to stick through it, which is fine, actually. It's not I mean, I'm not that there's anything wrong with anybody that didn't stick around. It just, not all friendships are meant to go on forever, so it was kind of a good weeding process. And now the friends that I have made since I've been really sick are amazing. And I just cannot believe, like, the amount of empathy and compassion of the people that have started to be friends with me when I'm already, like, at this level of sickness.
Can you think of anything in particular someone did that just made you feel, like, super cared for and taken care of and empathized with? I know, I'm putting you so on the spot.
I can't think of any specific examples because it's just all the time they're thinking of me, and it's like it's weird, but it's like people who've come into my life after I've gotten sick. It's almost easier for them to adjust than my family, who hasn't always known me as being sick. It's not because they still have these things they're holding on to in their mind, but like my good friends, they're always like, "Oh, like, do you need to sit down?" Like, they almost like see that I need to sit down before I say anything, or like I'm looking for a wall to lean on. And they're, like, already, like, directing me to it because they know I'm too stubborn. And
oh my gosh, yes. Okay, serious call out to David Kuros' husband for, like, I went out with him and his other husband this weekend for wine tasting, and he was rushing around finding chairs for me when I was too stubborn to say, I have to be in chair now. Like, that's such a loving thing for someone to do. That's, like, one of my favorite things. And, like, I have friends who will realize that I can't get out of bed, and they'll like, kind of check around on Facebook for me and, like, see whether I've left the house in, like, 2 weeks or so. And then they'll be like, so, are you hungry? Because I'm going to guess you didn't even get to the kitchen. And, like, I have one friend, Dawn, who you've probably heard on the podcast before, who she's chronically ill, and she will still check out to make sure I've been, like, fed and taken care of, and she will still come in, like, she just, like, comes in the back way to my house and, like, brings in soup or something for me to eat. And it's, gosh, there's so many nice ways that people can show that they care without over exhausting.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Is there anything we did not cover? Because we're at an hour, and I feel like there's still so much left to say, but I just want to make sure I'm getting through everything you wanted to say.
I think one thing I want to say is that if anybody wants to write for my blog or has any ideas, please message me. I'm sure you'll put the link in the
link will be at the very top. So if you go to Invisible Not Broken, if you're going to other show notes, I do put it at the top. It's just not as obvious because the show notes get reformatted. But if you're going to the invisiblenotbroken.com website, at the very top, there's buttons. Like, it looks really pretty and cute, and I have all the buttons. So the first one will be how to get right to your blog, and then the next one will be your artwork, because everyone needs to see your artwork. It's beautiful. But yes, please message Jasmine if you are a chronic illness blogger and you want a little bit more of a platform, a little bit more to say, and want to take some, like, work off of her shoulders. Is that about right?
Yeah, or just, like, get together and collaborate. I don't know. Whatever. If you have an idea, I'm just trying to launch it into a new realm.
It requires so many different skill sets to do things like launching podcasts and blogs. It's a little dizzying what you need to know. Yeah.
And the other thing, I guess, is if you want to get involved with adaptive climbing and you have any questions about that, because I still do competitions and I'm still pretty involved with that whole community, and there's a competition actually coming up in a month, so if you have any questions about that, feel free to message me.
And I'll put that button right at the top too. Jasmine, you are amazing, and your ability to see things so clearly. I'm really excited to post this episode, and thank you so much for pulling me through a very winding interview while I was trying to come up with my thoughts by speaking in circles. I really appreciate your help on that. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Be kind, be gentle, be a badass. By the way, thank you. Nigeria, Myanmar, I'm hoping I'm saying that correctly, and the Philippines. You guys are brand new to listening to the podcast, so welcome. Thank you so much, and message us because I want to know what life with chronic illness is like in your countries. I have no frame of reference, so I would love to hear what's set up in your areas and what your experiences are. That'd be amazing. Tune in next week. Nicest thing you can still do for us is to go over to Apple Podcasts, say nice things. If you have constructive criticism, be nice. I have 3 feelings. Don't step on them. And I think that's about it. Just be sure to share this episode. I think we went through a lot of really cool ways that you can be kind and helpful to someone with chronic illness, ways that you can be nice to yourself with chronic illness or mental health. So I think this is a super shareable episode. So hand this over to someone who maybe is like still trying to process on how to handle chronic illness or how to handle being a supportive person for someone with chronic illness. All right, everyone, have a great week. Thank you.